Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just speaking into the void? Well, with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills. Wait, did I say job title yet? Get started today and see how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. We'll even give you a $100 credit on your next campaign. Get started at linkedin.com/results. Terms and conditions apply.
This school year, let the Walmart app ace your kid's favorite subject, snack time. With Nature Valley Crunchy Granola and Danimals smoothies they'll actually wake up for. Craft Lunchables for a truly refined cafeteria palate, or Gatorade for when they take Capture the Flag a bit too seriously. Get all their on-the-go cravings delivered right to your door, just in time for that opening bell. New school year, all the snacks. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Make your next move with American Express Business Platinum. Earn 5 times membership rewards points on flights and prepaid hotels booked on AmexTravel.com. And with a welcome offer of 150,000 points after you spend $20,000 on purchases on the card within your first 3 months of membership, your business can soar to new heights. Terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum. Amex Business Platinum. Built for business by American Express.
Brooks Running reminds us that we're all powered by something. Whether it's the me-time energy of a run after a day at the office, the electrifying energy of your first marathon, or the infectious energy of a group run with your friends. No matter what energy powers you, Brooks has gear specifically designed to unleash it. So lace up and let it out. Let's run there. Visit brooksrunning.com today to learn more.
Welcome in, everybody. It is a Wednesday edition, the day after the 52-man initial release, because, yes, the Falcons only released a 52-man roster with one pending as soon as a trade becomes official today, I would imagine. We are going to react to it, take a look at it, take a look at some of the places, because they stress initial 53-man roster, because this won't be the same 53-man roster that suits up next week against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And yes, Nick, I said next week. It is almost football season. How are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Just wanted to take a second. I know everybody's waiting for us to acknowledge Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift, right? It's with it being football season. No, I'm just teasing. My wife, I was out in the backcountry the last 2 days, and I got a in-reach message, which is mostly supposed to be for emergencies. And she's like, Taylor Swift and Travis Kelce got engaged. I'm like, oh, that was worth 50 cents sending that to me. Good to hear. Yeah. So no, we're excited for football to get here. I did miss my fantasy draft because I moved things around to do this backcountry trip, and I prioritized the mountains over a small fantasy league. So I didn't end up with Drake London, but now it's the chance to try to trade for him. Hopefully he was one of my goals this year, to try to walk away with Drake London. Yeah.
Drake London's going to have a big year. He is. I think he's going to be the number one target for a pass-heavy offense. It's Drake and Bijan should have their numbers should go up, and then after that, we'll see. You expect more from Kyle Pitts. Right now, I would expect less from Darnell Mooney. He hasn't played all camp. Don't know if he'll be ready for week 1 or not. But I want to say hello to some folks before we get into the 53, because there were some interesting, not totally shocking moves, but there were some eyebrow-raising moves, including the overall makeup of the roster had me kind of raising my eyebrows as far as the position allotments and stuff. They're very, very different from the year prior. So we'll get into all that. I want to say hello to some folks who have come in here that are joining us this morning, like Philip. Philip Crawford says, good morning, fellas, in the chat. Hit the like button and subscribe. Good advice. Well, Austin's going to get into it for us right here anyway. He says, I'm surprised there are only 5 defensive linemen on the 53, because the 53rd person will be offensive tackle Michael Jarrell, who the Falcons traded a future 7th conditional, might not even end up having to send him a 7th, conditional 7th, depending on what the conditions are, it might move up to a 6th. I don't know. It might not be anything if he doesn't even make the team. We don't know what the conditions are. Really bad news about McGarry. Yeah, Caleb McGarry out for the season-ending IR. I'm not sure what all the cloak and dagger was there. If you were trying to negotiate a better trade just to come away with a future 7th-round Michael Jarrell pick. Not sure why we were playing so coy with that. It's out for the year. Jordan Fuller cut was a surprise, and I guess Xavier Watts is a starter. Kind of looks that way right now. But Nick, this is one of them for me. Do you know how many defensive linemen the Falcons kept, interior defensive linemen the Falcons kept on the roster last year?
7.
9.
Oh my God.
They kept 9. And then they went to a 2-man front. Just genius.
Yeah.
They keep 9. I mean, we talked about it. It was one of the, if not the most talented, it was certainly one of the deepest as far as the drop off from 1 to 9. One of the deepest positions on the team. They kept 9 last year. They only kept 5. Yeah. So again, I think that is a place we can look for a practice squad elevation, something along those lines, where they re-sign at least one of those guys, maybe a Simeon Barrow. But they kept on the defensive line, David Onyemata, Brandon Dorlus, LaCale London, Ruka Rohoro, and Zach Harrison. The one that surprises me that is not there is Contavious Street, another big body. And Nick, they did cut Morgan Fox. So if you had seen that or not while you were gone, that may have happened over the weekend before you left. But they did cut Morgan Fox and are taking on $3 million in his dead cap, which you could tell by the rotation, Nick. We talked about that after the first Lions game, that, dude, this dude's in trouble. If you're playing in the third quarter of a Raheem Morris preseason game, you're in trouble.
Yeah, the Falcons obviously move on from Fox. That was an $8.5 million contract, so they said
it was $3 million guaranteed. They take a $3 million dead cap. It was a 1 year, $3 million deal, basically.
But they saved 5.5, I think. If it was 8.5 out of the gate. On the money this season, but you're right about the guarantee.
No, it wasn't that much money. No.
It wasn't that much.
It was like they're not saving much. They're not going to save anything. This year they're going to absorb some of that money. He was on like 1.5 million this year. It was like a 2-year, $3 million deal with all of it guaranteed. So they're not saving anything by moving on from him.
We got Michael. We're talking about saving. We'll save some of this. Thank you, Michael, so much. $50 says, "Good morning, Scott and Nick on the Falcons podcast." Well, God bless you, Michael. We appreciate you so much. Happy Wednesday to you. And our next Wednesday show will be on the eve of the season. So, man, it is right around the corner. That is awesome. But, yeah, Fox out. Also Fuller out as well. We know that's something we've praised Fontenot about yearly. It seems like Scott is their free agent classes. But this year, you signed Fox, you signed Fuller, neither make the squad out of the gate. I know there's smaller moves, but still, those are the fringe guys. And for a team like the Falcons who don't have as much margin for error probably this season, those could come back like, oh man, could have signed this guy who is defensive tackle, one technique or something, or another offensive tackle depth, a wide receiver. It's just, it's kind of like the Broncos last season signing Josh Reynolds. Like, does that matter? Well, you could have $4 million could have gone somewhere.
That was a miss. That was the argument I had for Fox. Yes, this defensive line looks solid. And if Fox isn't there, that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I wasn't totally clear on this on Monday. And one of our great commenters very respectfully called me out on it. So I say called me out as a negative connotation. It wasn't like that. It was like, hey, Scott, I think you were a little harsh on Terry Fontenot on this. And I told him in the comment section, I kind of replayed that whole scene in my head after we went off air. And I was like, I agree with you. You were right, because I was not against the Morgan Fox signing. I didn't think it was a bad signing, and I'm not going to go back and say it was a bad signing. What got me a little fired up is all the people just glossing over the fact that $3 million doesn't mean anything. That's what was like. I was more upset with commenters than I'm not upset with Terry Fontenot signing Morgan Fox. The guy didn't make the team, and you've got a pretty good young rotation on defensive line. I'm not critical of the Fox signing. I apologize if it came off that way. I apologize for the fact that say, oh, it's $3 million. Who cares? That bothers me because, Nick, there's 23 players. I looked it up. There's 23 players that have a cap hit of $3 million or more out of 53. So $3 million is real money. Now, Jordan Fuller only had like $200,000 in guaranteed money. So he was never a definite part of this team. What I am surprised, though, is they only kept 3 guys. They only kept 3 safeties on there. And I would say, unless there is a change, you got Xavier Watts starting next to Jesse Bates with DeMarco Helms then as your number 1 backup coming in there. And if you're running dimes, you're not going to run a lot of 3 safety looks, and you hope that Helms can play on both sides, play either safety position. But again, thank you, Michael Ronquillo, for the huge donation, keeping the lights on, keeping this forehead nice and shiny. It means a lot. You're the best, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
So again, Nick, the makeup of this, not that Fuller didn't make it, but that they did only keep 3 safeties. That is a little bit more of a surprise to me. They kept, again, last year, they did keep 4 safeties with Jesse Bates, Justin Simmons, Richie Grant, and Micah Abernathy. I think they have, I'll take the 3 this year over the 4 last year.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a chance that one of these, 7 cornerbacks that they kept, has the ability to play some safety as well? Or when you talk about dime, I mean, Bowman was safety slot. I mean, he's kind of there. Maybe Clark Phillips. I know that there's questions with the size and the run defense. You kept Mike Ford, who's, special teams heavy. Maybe he has the ability to fill in there. Sometimes, I mean, with how versatile players are getting on the back end, specifically in coverage, you want to have guys who can wear a lot of different hats. And I do think that maybe there is some transition that you can have there. The other thing about the 53, Scott, as I ask you a question and don't even give you a chance to answer, is you have all the call-ups from practice squad as well. So like you have 3 on the 53. Well, you can have 3 call-ups from the practice squad that you can have throughout the season. So is it necessarily only 3 safeties? If you have to have one, you can call up a practice squad guy.
And that's where I would expect to see them. I'd expect to see the call-ups coming from defensive back on the safety and a defensive lineman on the first week. So watch practice squad today. Watch who are the best. Is it Simeon Barrow? Does he become a 6 guy? Do they bring back Jordan Fuller on the practice squad? I can't imagine him having a huge market out there. CJ Henderson, Ronnie Harrison. Do you bring back Ronnie Harrison on the practice squad? I know they were working him out at linebacker, but he has some safety. And to answer your question, I don't think Billy Bowman ends up being the safety, but he'll be in a nickel slot, which is kind of a safety position. They've wanted the rookies right there. This is your position. We're not going to worry about you doing a backup for a true free safety or strong safety type. I don't think it's going to be Billy Bowman, even though he has that background, because I think he's your starting nickel. And then you rotate your coverage with your cornerbacks. Lamar Jackson got cut, but on the very play that Darnell Mooney got hurt on, it was a deep throw up the right sidelines, and Jackson was coming horizontally across like a safety position. I started watching some of the way they were setting up, and their corners were back far enough off the ball in certain schemes and coverages that they looked like safeties. So they may go more heavy cloud coverage with some of their corners, but it did surprise me a little bit that they only had 3 safeties on this roster and only 5 offensive linemen on the roster, considering, again, the continuity, the togetherness between personnel and coaching last year. Well, it wasn't. Again, you kept 9 defensive linemen and you went to a 2-man front. What the hell are you doing, man? And then you wonder why is Rook and why is Dorless? Why are they healthy scratches? Because there's 9 DL on the active roster and you're only playing 2. We'll move forward. But every time I think back to last year, it makes me angry, Nick. And this was another reminder.
Yeah. I mean, only 5 right now. That we'll expect to move. I mean, there's a reason that they keep pushing.
That's great if you're going to play a 2-man front.
Yeah. They're not going to, though. I wouldn't expect that.
But they're not. They're going to play a 3. They're going to play. There's going to be 3 down linemen a lot, and then I think they'll want 6 on the active.
You should be able to find a plugger. I mean, maybe not like the real big difference maker, but somebody who is a viable body
out there. And Farmer's done a really good job with that as far as bringing guys in, bringing in those bodies. And I was a little surprised. London didn't really make this team last year. I think he was on the practice squad most of the time. I don't think he really even played a lot. Street played a good bit. Yeah. That was a little bit of a surprise for me. Again, these aren't big surprises. We're talking back end of the roster here. That London over Street. But London, we talked about, is the only player out there that's over like 320 pounds. Mm-hmm. His body type and what they need to do helped earn him a spot out there. Everybody else was in the 290 to 305 range, including Street, including Onyemata, including Orohiro. And then someone like Morgan Fox was 270, 275. He didn't really have a place in a 3-man front. Dantes, he says, I'm confused why we got rid of Easton Stick. Scott, but rise up. So last year they kept 3 on the initial 53, and then they traded Taylor Heineke today. So the Wednesday after the 53, they traded him, and they got a conditional 6th for him, I believe, from the Rams and the Chargers, those blue and yellow LA teams playing in the same stadium. I get them confused in my head. Apologies. I can't remember. I think he went I just wrote it down because he just got cut too.
I think it was the Chargers.
And all I wrote down was dumbass was Taylor Heineke was waived. I think it was the Chargers too.
Yeah.
Nick, I do think it was. So they may have tried to, they kept 2 active last year. They may have wanted to try and trade him, but as soon as Kenny Pickett went to the Raiders, I think that market dried up a little bit. We thought that might be a fit. They were looking for an experienced backup, and they went with Pickett. Would you rather have Easton Stick or Kenny Pickett for a 5th?
Probably Pickett.
Maybe.
Yeah.
Maybe. They're both cheap enough that it's not that big a deal, but either way, those are the type of guys you have as backup quarterbacks typically on a team. So once that happened, I think there wasn't a spot for him to keep 2, especially if you want to keep 7 wide receivers. Now, Nick, they kept 5 last year. 1 extra came from the running back room because that is your return guy. And then they did keep a 7th in David Sills Jr., which means Chris Blair and Dylan Drummond did not make this team. Nick Nash did not make this team. At least 2 of those guys, I believe, will get re-signed. There's so many wide receivers out there, y'all. That
there's a lot of like back end of the roster.
Yeah, that there's not a big chance of worrying about them getting claimed somewhere else. I mean, everybody just cut 10 wide receivers. There's 200, 300 receivers out there with NFL experience that just hit the waiver wire. How many of those guys do you bring back? I want all 3 back if there's room. I mean, they played really well in the offseason and preseason for the Atlanta Falcons. I'd like to see them stick, no pun intended, as Atlanta Falcons.
You say that, but you kept 7 on the active roster. I mean, is there even a chance that any of those guys would get called up? If you have somebody who's like a long-term starter, like not even starter, let's say wide receiver 4 potential, maybe, but you just proved the point of how many were waived and cut. And there's so many in that bucket that I do wonder if it's just a numbers game. Like, well, why would we activate any of you anyway?
Agnew's beat up. Agnew hasn't done anything yet. And Darnell Mooney's been beat up. We don't know that he's playing week 1 either.
So, but I don't know if you keep 2 or 3 still. I mean, even that you have a lot of
and again, to your point, 5 is plenty for a game day.
Yeah. You already have it built into the roster. I do expect them to keep some, but is it worth using? How many is it on your practice squad? 10? 3 of them with wide receiver when you already have 7 on the roster?
There's 16 on your practice squad, and the Falcons will get 17 if Lenny Craig goes through waivers today.
Yeah. So, again, I just don't know. I mean, you will keep a good amount, but prioritizing probably defensive backs, if possible, defensive linemen, if possible, and maybe safety, as we talked about as well. We got Curtis coming in. Good morning, Scott, Nick, and Falcons Nation. Do you think the Falcons should sign a right tackle at least for 1 year? You're treading water until Storm Norton is back, and you made a move trading for from the
Michael
Seahawks.
Jarrell from the Seahawks.
Yep. Michael Jarrell.
To answer this question, Curtis, for me, the answer is still yes. However, they're such a mirage. The contracts are such a mirage. And it was one of the reasons as a kid I got so mad. I was 25. But when you hear administrators, coaches, general managers, well, he's got a contract, he should be in camp. My ass, he's got a contract. Lenny Craig has a 3-year, $3 million contract. You know how much he's been paid on that? About $15,000. And that's all they owe him, after cutting him. So do I think the Falcons should bring in a circus line of right tackles? Yes, I do. And if I sign him, it's about the guaranteed money. If I do sign them, how much do I guarantee them? You wouldn't have to guarantee them a lot. They're out of work. But they should be on the waiver wire. And I'm sure there's questions in here today, and I'm just not going to have the answers because I don't know the back end of everybody else's roster well enough. What I do know, though, is I look at the Buffalo Bills, running team, strong offensive line. They just cut 8 offensive linemen. Anybody in there I might be interested in? And I'm doing this with every team. But just for the purpose of this podcast, who's another team we know is a good running team, Nick? Name me 2 more.
Eagles and Ravens.
Eagles and Ravens, and then I'm going to throw in the Lions because that was where I was hoping you'd go there. The Lions cut 8 guys, including Dan Skipper. Am I on the phone with Dan Skipper to come in and do a workout? Yes, I am. Yes, I am. So I absolutely believe the Atlanta Falcons are not done scouring for offensive line help, especially at right tackle.
The issue with that, Scott, I think the numbers are when the waiver wires go through and the people who are actually claimed off of other rosters, I think like something like 50% is offensive linemen. So teams, a lot of time, if you think, oh, why would we keep this offensive lineman instead of this wide receiver? Offensive linemen do not go through because everybody's looking for those guys. Where wide receiver, you can find them. So even if they are a higher rated, let's say we just do the Madden analogy here. You have a wide receiver who's 70 and an offensive tackle who's 65. A lot of times teams are going to keep that offensive tackle who's the 65, even though the wide receiver is higher because there's just a lot of 70s and 65s available.
Well, it's hard. It's discussion we had. What are you going to do? It's hard. You can't trade for – most teams want 3 offensive tackles. Most teams don't have 3 offensive tackles.
This episode is brought to you by Netflix. Becoming the most valuable sports franchise in the world doesn't happen without risk. A man who's willing to bet it all, and the players ready to make their own luck. America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, is the story of the 1990s Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones's impact on NFL history. Featuring interviews with iconic 90s players and more. Watch America's Team, The Gambler and His Cowboys, streaming now only on Netflix.
This episode is brought to you by State Farm. Life gets easier with great assists, and State Farm is here to dish one your way. Get in touch over the phone or on the app to get the teammate you need. State Farm with the assist. Like a good neighbor, State Farm is there. Coverage options are selected by the customer. Availability and eligibility vary by state.
You muted yourself on that?
I said most teams don't even have 2.
Right. So it's hard. Yeah. It is hard. But right now, the Falcons, you're going out there with Eli Wilkinson and Mike Jarrell. Is that good enough? No, it's not. Can you do better with the players that are available? Maybe. You're going to try. You're going to look. I'm going to call up Lael Collins and say, hey, you want to come run some shuttles for me and do a workout? I'm going to call Dan Skipper. Hey, what's it going to take? And it doesn't even have to be waived. Now, only about 25. We talk about, we're going to lose this guy to lose this guy. It's less than 1 guy per team that gets signed to another team in the waiver wire process after cuts. It's like 25 to 27 players total. But to Nick's point, half of those guys are offensive linemen. So do watch out. But yes, the Falcons will absolutely still be in the market for offensive linemen. Denver Luke, good to see you. Thank you for the super chat, my friend. He says, good morning, Scott and Nick. He's giving us a coffee emoji, and by God, I'll drink to that.
I need it, Scott. I woke up yesterday for that summit bid at 3 a.m. and started moving. My buddy's not an early riser.
That's not getting up. That's staying up.
I mean, but we were in bed by 9, so we got some sleep. But
yeah, I'm teasing. That's usually I've gotten up at least once to pee in the middle of the night by then, so I'm awake.
And we did the.
Thank you for the super chat. And then Rusty coming in again. He says, and thank you for the support. Good to see you, Rusty. Hope you're doing okay this morning. He says, the only thing that scares me is an injury to any more offensive linemen, Drake, Caden Ellis, or AJ Terrell. If they stay healthy, we should be okay. Depth at those spots is a concern. Depth is definitely a concern at linebacker, wide receiver, offensive line. I agree. And we just talked about, you're keeping 7 wide receivers. You like all these guys. Yeah, but there's Drake, and then there's kind of everybody else. Drake is a big key to this. Nick, did you freeze up? Give me a head shake. I think Nick froze up on me. Drake is different. So I want to make sure if something happens to Drake, it's that there's problems. Talk about McGarry. People say, people are acting like the season's over because you lost McGarry. It's not necessarily that. It's McGarry and Norton. And then you're down to your third guy, and you weren't great at your second guy. You were okay at your second guy, but not necessarily great. But I do like Storm Norton. I think he can do a job, but he's out. And now, here's my question on this, Rusty, and Falcons fans. I wasn't positive Storm was going to make this team. I thought there might be an energy. I mean, we're talking about a backup lineman. Typically, when backup linemen are going to be out for a while, there's no guarantee they're going to make the team. So how good is he going to be? How good is Storm Norton going to be? We talked about him just being okay, serviceable, not, a plus starter in the NFL. That's normal. That's where we think of Storm Norton typically. Well, he hadn't played football in 3 months. Now what? Now what do you expect when he comes back? Am I expecting the best version of Storm Norton, which is just okay anyway? No, I'm not. So the whole situation at right tackle is a little scary. At linebacker, yes, don't need any injuries there. We saw what happens when Troy Anderson went out and there was no replacement, and you were forced to put in J.D. Bertrand and Nate Landman. It was bad. Now, that said, Ulbrich was a linebacker. He will not make the linebackers who can't run very well play safety, because that's basically what they were. They were 8 yards off the ball, covering the entire field, safeties. That's where Jimmy Lake had J.D. Landman, Bertrand, and Nate Landman playing. It was basically a safety role, an in-the-box safety role. He won't do that. If Bertrand's on the field, he's going to be near the line of scrimmage, attacking, the ball carrier, that type of stuff. But Divine Diablo was an underrated, underappreciated across the NFL monster upgrade of athleticism in that position. But again, you're an injury away from having Bertrand back out there again. It won't be the same scheme. So again, I don't always blame, and y'all have heard me say this stuff enough before. I usually say like the play at quarterback, not necessarily the quarterback was terrible, but the quarterback play, because the coaches have something to do with this too, for sure. Speaking of which, 2023, the Atlanta Falcons go into the season with Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke pinning their hopes on a $200 million offseason of free agency and back-to-back top 10 classes. I've been doing recruiting again. Draft classes, et cetera, with their hopes pinned on Desmond Ridder and Taylor Heineke as their quarterbacks. Neither of them is on a roster 2 years later. Both of them just got cut. Personnel mistakes on that, for sure. Lance Rendar, he says, too much special teams emphasis on the initial roster. Sorry, but Agnew, Sills, Franks, and Malone are roster cloggers given their limited potential. I get that too. Agnew, we don't expect Ray McLeod out of him, but he's taking the spot of Avery Williams. There's one. Sills, I think Sills is there really as much as to be a wide receiver 5, and will he end up staying? Are they going to keep 7 the whole season? That's a lot. So we'll see. So Lance, remember, this is an initial 53. They might not keep 7 the whole time. And I guarantee you, I won't guarantee you all this. I'm not going to guarantee you. I don't think they'll keep 7 active ever on the 53, on the 48 game day rosters. They take five players off the roster every week, more if they have practice squad elevations. So we look at the inactives. These are guys that they just didn't want to expose to waivers. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to be on the active game day roster, but I agree with you on that. As far as D'Angelo Malone, they probably listed him at edge. And they did. They went from 4 edge rushers to 6 this year, but one of those guys is D'Angelo Malone. You could combine him because he was really playing more inside linebacker than he was edge/outside linebacker during the preseason. And I feel I like D'Angelo Malone. I feel like he makes things happen when he's out there. There's not necessarily a spot for him at edge anymore, and I don't know how good he'd be at inside linebacker either now that, with limited experience. By God, whenever there's a play on punt coverage, 51 standing there. I think he's 51. D'Angelo Malone standing there. He's right there in the middle of it. And the fact that Lance, if you go back and go look at coverage, kick returns, punt coverage, kick coverage, field goal percentage, if the Falcons weren't the worst special teams unit in the NFL last year, they were close. They were really, really close. And that's a place where you can get better pretty quickly, where you can go from 32 to 15 in a hurry. Younghoe Koo is going to have a lot to do with that, and I think some of the personnel here will help too. So I like those guys, and I guess the question is, who would you have kept instead on there? CJ Henderson, get an extra safety or a corner. Jordan Fuller, I'm not crying spilled milk over Jordan Fuller not making this team. Again, he was signed for $1.2 million. He was a part-time player in the past. He's not the future. Your third quarterback, yeah, you're going to sign another quarterback and put him on the practice squad anyway. If you need to elevate him for a week, you can. So I don't know. Brandon Parker, offensive tackle, were there guys out there you're like, he should have been here instead of this person? I don't necessarily have that feeling about these guys. And I can roll through all the cuts. Let me see. Initial 53. I had it as a tracker. I put all the cuts down at the bottom on the tracker that we released yesterday. Carlos Washington, would you rather kept Chris Blair or Nick Nash or Dylan Drummond? I don't think there's a huge difference in the receiving ability there with Sills. The tight ends, Joshua Simon and Kalanick. I'm still not sure how to pronounce his name. Meh. The wide receivers, Morgan Fox, maybe. Khalid Kareem. There's already 6 guys at edge rusher. Your safety, your corners, maybe Kobe Bryant, but he really didn't have much of a camp either. Or CJ Henderson. So on this one, going back, I understand this. I really do. But I just, there's nobody there that there's nobody that got cut that I'm really, no pun intended to Nick Nash, that I'm like gnashing my teeth over, if that makes sense. As far as is it a little special teams heavy to begin with? Maybe, but there's a clear path to playing time for these guys. There's not for a lot that got cut. So again, there's nobody out there that really makes me think that I'm really like, oh man, I can't believe they kept this guy over that guy. There's nobody out there that's like that. It was close enough for me, Nick.
Yeah, and also, again, back of the roster kind of guys. Just, you never know, I guess it's true, but not a lot of young development. You kept the young developmental talent that probably had a shot. A lot of them were fringe borderline guys, which, not to make too little of them, but you can find replacements, equivalents to them every offseason. Derek comes in and is shocked about D. Alford. That is the one that's probably on the most.
If there's one.
Yeah. Yeah, I probably would have kept Fuller over Alford, because you had 7 cornerbacks to 3 safeties. That one made sense. But at the end of the day, D. Alford might be one who, again, the Falcons kept putting out that it's an initial. Alford could be out still as well. So we'll see. Keeping an eye on wide receiver and cornerback just because the numbers at those spots. To the point of the special teams, Scott, you mentioned it's a path to playing time. It's also a regime that needs results this season. How much does a guy who might be a fringe rotational player in 2 years matter as much to this regime as somebody who can make a difference right now in special teams? I mean, they have to put it up this season or everybody could be gone.
Yeah. If there was one guy that is like, he made the team again, right now it's probably D. But again, if I'm looking at the nickel position, he's probably better in coverage right now than Billy Bowman, as far as a turn and go. I want Billy out there for sure. We all want Billy Bowman to be the guy because we saw that D. Alford struggled last year. And again, I'll say it about Bertrand, I'll say it about Lamb, and I say it about Justin Simmons. These guys were not put in positions to succeed last year. Okay. They were given too much space and too much time to cover. They were hung out to dry by the scheme that they were in. Alford is not as bad as he looked last year. But this one is a little bit of a surprise for me. Is D. Alford, and as Psalm says, his versatility is what saved him. He's the number 1 punt returner right now until Agnew gets out there and takes it from him and is healthy, which we haven't seen a lick of him this summer. Alford's your punt returner, and they value his hands, and he looked sure-handed out there in preseason. He's completely unmemorable to me as a return man. I would have to look it up to see if he has done this in the past. But this summer, he was a sure-handed guy. I mean, Scott, don't you remember this fumble, that fumble? No, I don't. Apologies, I don't. He has left zero impression on me as a punt returner in the past. Zero. But Avery Williams was a guy. He was a guy. I don't even know when Avery was out who was returning punts. Might have been D, and he wasn't very good.
But that is a pathway to playing time and rosterability with the initial roster. Like we talked about, there are some guys coming back. Hopefully, Storm Norton being one of them. Who else can be activated off the pup? We haven't talked too much about that. We got Brian Friedman coming in here. Good to see you, Brian, one of our longtime commenters over on Facebook. Terry Clark. So the front office didn't like the cut options coming from the teams. They decided to go with draft compensation for the tackle from Seattle. I know he looked good against us, but to trade for him, it's a conditional 7th. It might not even go that way.
And a 2027 7th.
At that, yep. And also we talked about it, Scott. Offensive linemen do not make it through waivers. They just don't. They're going to get claimed. You're sitting there. What is it? The middle of the pack selection, 15 overall. Yeah, I'm guessing any offensive lineman, specifically tackle, worth their ilk is not making it to 15th. So you get ahead of it.
Just turned 26 years old. You know, it's like, okay, is Dan? What about Dan Skipper? Oh, I'm the phone, Dan Skipper. Don't get me wrong. I'm my job as a general manager. I'm trying to find somebody. My job is to replace you, is to get better. That's my job as a general manager. They're not done by any stretch of the imagination, but giving up a conditional 7th in 2027 and has been written more than once, they might not be here in 2027 to make those picks. If, this all goes bad, they won't be here in 2026. So they needed to fix this. And this isn't necessarily a fix. This is another option. And some of the things he can do well, but he's a 26-year-old with starting experience with Seattle. Okay, that's a start. No pun intended. That's some place to go. And Matt Snyder says, keep in mind, Taquan Graham will be back. Yeah, he's out at least 4 games. It was him and Storm that got the designation for return. And then I don't know the difference between that and PUP. Is it just the timing? Because Troy's on the PUP list also, but he's eligible in 4 games also. So I don't know the difference in that. Troy Anderson, Storm Norton, and Taquan Graham, 2 of them are on IR with designations for return. You're only allowed 2. And I think the timing, because they put Troy Anderson on the PUP list before camp started, he is eligible to come back after 4 games also. So those guys are October additions, possibly.
Yeah, no doubt. But we got Larry coming in, says I think Kobe will be back. Yep, we'll keep an eye on Kobe Bryant. I mean, I know he was super hyped when we brought him in. Loved the name and everything, but didn't really didn't move the needle too much in preseason. So we'll see. Probably a practice squad guy. That's the thing too. A lot of your guys are going to make it through practice squad. Timothy, good morning.
Almost all of them do. The guys who went back, on average, teams lose less than 1 player to waivers.
Yep. I think it's like 6 to 10 a year, pretty much. A lot of times.
I saw a press conference the other day. Said 25 to 27 from a coach.
Okay, all right.
Average.
So about 1, but I will say sometimes it is defensive backs. I think are the second most picked up. Timothy, good to see you. Have a blessed day. Football's getting closer and closer. It is. I was kind of bummed to see Iowa State win in Dublin. Always pulling against the Cyclones. I know it's kind of the in-state, friendly. I'm like, nope, I don't want them to win. Now that we recruit the same players, screw them. Unbeatable. Good morning, guys. Good to see you. Unbeatable. Hope you're doing well. Glad to see my internet's holding up now. Keith, are you guys surprised Nick Nash didn't earn a 53 spot? They leaned into special teams and they already kept the 7. So am I that surprised? No, I think they'll probably be able to sneak him on the practice squad and get another year of development in him and maybe call him up. We'll see, but I'm not overly surprised there.
Yeah, I'm not surprised either. I do like him as a practice squad guy, but again, who am I taking him over? I don't see that big a difference between him and Sills. And the one that's a mystery to me, and literally is a mystery. I hit Denver Luke again. Why not? So good to see you. That was already a super chat. We'll say thanks again. Is Agnew? I haven't seen anything from Agnew. I don't know anything about him other than what his stat sheets say. I don't watch every team in NFL on a regular basis, and we haven't seen anything from him. That's the one that's the head scratcher for me is, when do we get to see this mysterious return ace, Jamal Agnew? Week 1? Is that going to be his first action? I don't know. I don't know on that one. So that's the one that's again kind of the head scratcher for me. And with Lenny Craig, if you needed a kicker, you could do worse than putting a claim in on this guy. Once you pass through waivers, you're free to sign with anyone else. So he'd be free. I think they might put in different rules on this through the International Pathway Player Program. If they did, then he's got exclusive rights with the Falcons. If they don't, then again, I don't know for sure. He'd be free to sign with someone else, but most of these guys come back. If he re-signs, he could be basically the 17th guy on the practice squad because he wouldn't count again. But he had to pass through waivers to do this. And the initial contract that these guys sign of, he's got a 3-year, $3 million contract. That's quite the investment when you already have a kicker. Yeah, it's bogus, y'all. Look at the guaranteed money. It was $15,000. That's it. Now, if he re-signs, he'll get a practice squad deal. So it's all like that. Jordan Fuller, you didn't play. No, Jordan Fuller didn't get it. He didn't have any money. D. Alford didn't have any money. He only had $200,000 of guaranteed money coming into this camp. He earned a spot. Good for him.
Yep. Pamela coming in. She did call the Felipe Franks making it, I think. So good. Really heavy on the wide receivers, Scott. Only 4 tight ends, and where we categorize Pitts, maybe with how it's set up, we'll see more Pitts tight end. But she did call that and says, "Good morning, everyone in the chat. Happy Wednesday. Good to see you, Pamela. Hope you're doing well. A happy Wednesday to you as well."
There's a comment here I'm about to click on. I wanted to check first. It was from Harry. Good morning, Harry. He says, "I never thought Kobe and Clark would both make it. I didn't think Clark, Phillips, D. Alford. I didn't think both of those guys would make it.
Yeah.
I thought it'd be one or the other. And then, you look at this, keeping this. And I guess to go back to one of the earlier points about, special teams, Mike Ford is on this roster. He's a pretty good special teams player. Mm-hmm. He's a gunner. I've got him and David Sills as gunners now. That's solid. But he's not a very good corner. Natron Brooks is okay. Clark Phillips, this team needs an investment in cornerback in a big way. Again, I've harped on this here recently. They haven't used a day 1 or 2, basically a first, second, or third round pick on a cornerback since A.J. Terrell. And this room shows it. You've got 7 cornerbacks, A.J. Terrell, Mike Hughes, Billy Bowman, Clark Phillips, D. Alford, Mike Ford, and Natron Brooks. That's not a great room. That's not a great room at corner right now. You can't fix everything in one offseason, and they went pass rush this year. But an investment needs to be made into the cornerback room.
Yeah, without a doubt, it lines up for them. No first-round pick, but you can find number 2 corners day 2. It's just sometimes, maybe a little bit of a slower maturation process with those guys, but you never know. And also, again, Scott, coming back to it, offensive line. And Pamela talked about the Felipe Franks, and congrats to those who survived the cut. They definitely deserve to be on the team. Yeah, Falcons, we talked about it, the depth. You're looking at the roster. It's not the deepest roster right now, but that means you might see some competition, some guys up and downs, and some players that aren't here yet on this initial 53 work their way up into important roles throughout the season. So we're keeping an eye. Falcons are going to be doing some work on the waiver wire and the post-cuts free agent scene.
Franks did have a good camp. He did. I had no inclination of him making this team, but he did have a good camp. Just watching him blocking, especially. Mm-hmm. And again, I bet Felipe, he's 6'5", 240 pounds. Felipe Franks ref. I don't have to spell it right. Thank you, Google.
This episode is brought to you by Nespresso Virtual Coffee Machines. Ready to enjoy the bold flavors of barista-quality Nespresso iced coffee at home? Simply fill a glass with ice and press the brew button on your virtual pop machine to enjoy rich double espressos roasted to stand up even when chilled. Refreshingly bold iced coffee. Refreshingly easy to make at home. Visit Nespresso.com to shop now.
You're tuned into Auto Intelligence, live from Auto Trader, where data, tools, and your preferences sync to make your car shopping smooth.
They're searching inventory.
Oh, yeah.
They find what you need.
They're gonna find it.
You can make a budget for your wallet to help you succeed. Pricing's precise and true.
So true.
It's smarter car shopping.
Ooh.
Just for you.
Oh, it's just for you. Ooh. Find your next ride at autotrader.com. Powered by Auto Intelligence.
I do have to spell it better than that, though. Come on. It wouldn't come up in Football Reference. But my point is, he's a unit. He's big, and he's tall. And, you get the green jersey or the yellow, red jerseys, whatever you want to do, no contact stuff, and these prima donnas. He's been out of the quarterback position long enough to realize that he's a unit. And he attacked defenders like he was a big, strong athlete, and he looked good this camp. He really did. And the competition for him was, Kalanick, Joshua Simon. There's your practice squad guy. Simon will be back. Joshua Simon will be back on the practice squad because he's got some potential to him. These UDF. I don't think a single UDFA is going to make the team. Hopefully, they'll bring all those guys back. Simon, Nick Nash, Simeon Barrow, Kobe Bryant. There's 4 that are that could end. We'll see. I believe we'll see time on the Falcons roster before the season is over.
Yep. And I do have Felipe Franks is listed 6'6", 241.
Yeah, he's a unit. He's a big dude.
One. Yep.
Those long arms and everything. He can block, and he did. He did a good job this camp.
You never know about the mentality with those quarterback converts. I always think of AJ Derby as somebody like that, but no, he's definitely
Anthony Richardson.
Anthony, we'll see. Keep an eye out. Maybe that's a Taysom Hill pathway coming up, but yeah, we gotta stay healthy there. Jimmy says some are saying grab Lael Collins from Dallas. Mm-hmm. Possibly. I mean, you guys did do that trade, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't still be looking and calling. The issue is that you are already lower on some capital to make those moves. And you do have Storm coming back here soon. And I know that he's been we talked about this guy. You love him as your third. You don't love him for a full season, but might be a hold on type of situation at right tackle this season, which not ideal with Michael Penix, first year starter out there, but we'll see. Every team deals with injuries. And this year, unfortunately, it is that right tackle spot. And I don't know if you saw, oh my gosh, his name's escaping me. The trench warfare guy, Brandon. He does a lot of writing for offensive line. Somebody in the chat maybe can help me out here. Brandon Thorne. There we go. He dropped.
Wouldn't come up with that if you gave me another hour.
Okay, Brandon Thorne. He's done work with NFL Network, I believe. He has his own thing, and he's pretty well respected for specifically offensive line coverage. And I think with the injury to Caleb McGarry, he dropped the Falcons' ranking of their offensive line from 13th to 14th all the way down to 23, which is. I mean, that makes it seem like, oh, man, Caleb McGarry is not that good, but we always talk about with offensive tackle, the difference between your starters and the depth is probably as stark as any position in the NFL.
Yeah, he's not that good, but if you've got a giant hole there right now, and again, they're going to solve that in the early process by Charlie Warner was going to be hip to hip with McGarry too. We've said that all offseason. I remember the question specifically. I don't remember who it was, but do you trust Caleb McGarry protecting Michael Penix's blind side? No, I don't. That's why Charlie Warner's there. Charlie Warner is going to be there in pass sets. And then you hope if it's Eli Wilkinson as an interior lineman who's been good at guard through the last couple of years after kind of washing out at tackle early in his career, he was a solid guard for the Falcons. He should be able to be good in the run game then. And then I've got to help make up for it in numbers. And Charlie Warner's got, 6 catches in his life anyway. I'm not losing much in a receiver there. I still have 4. If I have Charlie Warner in pass blocking, I still have at least 4 options at receiver. As far as I got my running back and I got 3 wide receivers, including Kyle Pitts as one of those guys. Drake London, Kyle Pitts, Darnell Mooney, and/or Ray McLeod with Bijan Robinson or Tyler Algier. I'm okay there with Charlie Warner being a 6 offensive lineman or so. But it's not ideal. You'd rather have all of your weapons there and be able to do things. Maybe I can sneak Charlie Warner out, on a goal line situation and get an easy touchdown. That's the stuff that we will see. Keith asks, should the Falcons go after a kicker, Dustin Hopkins? No, they're good with Young Waku. If they weren't, they would have kept Lenny Craig. So the Falcons are okay at kicker. They weren't last year, but that was more about Young Waku being injured and trying to play through that, just like Kirk Cousins. But he didn't come out and say, oh yeah, I was hurt and I played anyway. That was Kirk Cousins' mistake. Every single player can pretty much say that. Kirk Cousins came out and said it. What do they say? Keep the inside voices to yourself sometimes. That's where Kirk got himself in trouble, Nick.
Yeah. Yep, no doubt. I did see we have also Sam Klontz coming in here with a super chat. You guys are killing it today. Says, good morning. How do you think play calling changes with a third stringer starting at right tackle? Scott did kind of just touch on it a bit, but Warner was already going to be attached. Maybe you have a little less run design action to that side. I know McGarry has been a strong run blocker. That was his calling card there with Arthur Smith and getting those contracts that he did. So maybe you're working a little bit more with Matthews out there as well, or working more inside. But pass protection wise, it's going to be on Penix to protect himself, get the ball out. Luckily, it's not his, or it is his blind side, but like that's kind of, I think, overrated in the shotgun heavy NFL today. So you can have blind side on your front side. We've seen with Anthony Richardson. So we'll see how it plays out. But it's definitely a bummer. And I've mentioned it coming into the draft. Scott mentioned it all off season. Can the Falcons stop the run? Can they protect Michael Penix? Questions with only five interior defensive linemen, and two of them pretty darn small. And now the offensive line injury. Those are probably going to be the questions we have throughout the year.
I would attack, Sam. I would attack at right tackle in the running game. Is how I would go at it. Is get that whoever's lined up on that side, get them on their heels a little bit. I still have Chris Lindstrom over there. I still have Charlie Warner over there, and now I'm going to have another big body over there. If it's Eli Wilkinson, he's a guard. Let's keep running that side, that zone, that wide zone. Let's keep running that way. Put them on their heels a little bit. Move the pocket around. Little play actions, little waggles, bootlegs. Move the pocket around a little bit. So I don't know how much it's going to change, because the limitations that you're going to have there are the same limitations that you had with Caleb McGarry. It's just you're not going to have as good a, I don't care who you put in there, he's not going to be as good a run blocker as Caleb McGarry. He's one of the best in the NFL. But can you make up for that and get enough space? I've got Bijan Robinson. I don't necessarily need the best right tackle, run blocking right tackle, and the best guard in football, and the best run blocking tight end for Bijan Robinson to be successful, for Tyler Algier to be able to break through a tackle. I just need to be able to do a job at right tackle on there. So we'll see. Yep. We will see. Sean Cumminy says, good morning, fellas. Did you get that mug from Epic Universe, Scott? Yeah, the first weekend it opened, my girls went down there, and my daughter got me the mug. So How to Train Your Dragon brought it back for me. It's like a $1,500 mug.
Jesus.
So yes, I don't consider myself like a big Dragons guy, but then here I am with, Fourth Wing and the Empyrean and How to Train Your Dragon are some of my favorites. So maybe I am. But yes, my daughter got this for me down at Epic Universe, and they raved about it. Free plug for Disney. How do you like that? Atlanta Falcons Pandemic, he says, the rules make PUP and IR different. You're allowed 8 players on IR, and only 2 won't count against the 53. Yeah, you're allowed to start with 2 designated for return, but then there's still short-term IR, et cetera, and then there's like PUP beforehand and PUP after. There's season ending, and I don't know all the differences. I know what matters right now is Troy Anderson on the PUP, and I believe it's because he started camp on PUP, is available to come back after 4 games. Storm Norton and Taquan Graham are on designated return IR, and you're only allowed 2 to do that, that don't count against the 53. They are eligible to return after 4 games. We'll see if they do or not, how long it's going to be. And then season-ending IR is self-explanatory, and that's where Caleb McGarry is. Caleb McGarry is on season-ending IR, and his season is over, and he will have 1 year basically of financial obligations on his contract coming off of the season-ending injury in 2026. It's not good. That was not a good injury all around. And we said, Nick, yes, you'd like to be able to go corner. I just talked about, maybe one of the areas you need immediate help right now the most. If I could have number 1 draft pick and put it anywhere on the team prior to this, it might be cornerback. It might be. That's where a player could help this team the most. Moving forward, they've got to plan for offensive tackle. They have to. Jake's getting older. Caleb's in his 30s coming off of an injury. All of a sudden, Nick, going into 2026, offensive tackle becomes my number 1 need.
Yeah, I mean, it was when we talked about it. At the end of the day, draft good players, but offensive tackle up there. Also, you have, after this season, will it be just 1 year left of control, 2 years left of control of?
They're both financially. They both have 2 years left of control, I believe, on McGarry and Matthews, but they're financially tied through 26. Then the contracts get flexible again. As far as, and when I say flexible, I always mean the dead money is less than the cap.
Yeah.
So I can move on and save money. That's when I talk flexibility.
Yep. I was going to say Bergeron's contract will have 1 year left.
Yeah.
After this season.
Next year will be his 4th year too.
So you're looking at guard as well. So yeah, a lot of offensive line reshuffling, and that has to be a priority with Michael Penix, without a doubt. So Scott, I do need to get running here.
Yep. Hop on out, and I'm going to stick around just for a minute. And then also as a reminder, a couple reminders. Go ahead, Nick. Say goodbye to everybody.
Yeah. See everybody. Have a good one. And Keith's question, why are they such a unicorn? Because a lot of those guys who are those type of athletes are making unbelievably more money rushing the passer. Or if they're that good of a pass catcher, they're slimming down and playing wide receiver. Where is the money? Or they're playing quarterback. I mean, the tight end does not make good money. Also, teams are not developing those guys in college, really. I mean, I think maybe with basketball changing a little bit, your 6'5", 240-pound power forward types are not. Now it's becoming more of a stretch 4. So maybe you have a little bit more body types going into football that are doing that. I know there's always the baseball answer with Scott as well. That's more of the arm talent, but it's just follow the money. They're not being developed in college. Teams aren't using tight ends in an NFL way. It's a lot of issues with linebacker as well coming out of college. And if you are that good of an athlete, you're making way more money rushing the passer or moving out wide and playing X. There's just there's more money. There's more value.
So, all right, Nick, I'm going to finish this one too as you go, but we'll see you later. I guess I'll talk to you later. Thanks for being here, Nick. And Keith, on this real quick. There was if y'all remember John Matuzak, I read his book when I was a kid, Cruising with the Twos. He actually came up as a tight end. And then he ended up being the number 1 overall pick as a defensive lineman. He just said that tight end is an MFer of a position. You got to go run sprints with the skinny wide receivers, and then you got to go get into the blocking drills with the offensive linemen. If I can catch, I want to catch. I don't want to block. That's just the mentality. When you're coming up as a kid and you're going through this, man, I want to be a pass catcher. I don't want to be a blocker. And then if I am big and fast, I used to joke, why aren't there more tight ends that come from the SEC? Why don't more tight ends come from the South? It's changed a little bit with the rules. Because if you're big and fast in the South, they put you on defense. That's kind of the answer to that. But I guess the easiest way for me to say it is, John Matuzak going back 40 years ago said tight end is an MFer of a position on that. Couple programming notes on this. I'm on with Smitty at noon today. I'm not sure if that's going to go live, but if you're not subscribed to Smitty, please do. He's got a bunch of subscribers, so you probably are on YouTube. I'm going on with him and A1 at noon today. I'm not positive that's going to be live, but we will. I'll see if I can stream it to my channel as well. So we'll have a little extra content, and then I will not be here on Monday. So no show on Monday. Make it up to you. Probably do a second show on Friday next week. I'm out of town this week. Labor Day weekend, 25th anniversary, et cetera, et cetera. I am not going to be here. And yes, he was a caveman. Matuzak, he was also, how's Lurch? What was his name in the Goonies? Come on, help me out here. Anyway, he was the big ugly dude in Goonies was John Matuzak on this. And he was another one of those Raiders guys that partied a little too hard and died young. That happened to a lot of them, but that was John Matuzak, and he had a book I enjoyed reading as a kid called Cruising with the Twos. That I did enjoy reading that. Chris Walker says we're gonna have to quit giving up draft picks to players in trades and stuff. Yeah, we don't have enough picks here in Atlanta. I agree. Terry's made 5 draft day trades. 4 of them have been to trade up. That might be the highest ratio of any in the NFL. But a conditional 7th rounder in 2027, so be it. You can pick that one back up somewhere else, to try and get a former 6th rounder who started some games and looked okay in an emergency. So be it. Sloth. Thank you, guys. Golly, I couldn't remember Sloth's name. That's one of the problems of going live. But Sloth. Yeah, John Matuzak was Sloth in the Goonies. Same guy, and he was a number 1 overall pick. And this is way back like 72 or something like that, before everything was instantaneous and beforehand. But he's telling the story, he gets the call. He wasn't expecting to go number 1. He wasn't sure he's going to go top 10. He says he's like taking a big chug of beer when the call comes in. He's going to be the number 1 overall pick. It's a good book. Anyway, it's an older book. it's a little bit sad at the end. He's talking about, hey, I've gotten my life together, and I had known he'd already passed away, and it's just, anyway, enough of that. Final thoughts on the initial 53. I'll whip through them here real quick. 2 quarterbacks. That's eventually how many they kept last year after trading Taylor Heineke on the Wednesday after deadline day last year. 3 running backs. Not surprised there. Also, not surprised that Nathan Carter made this team. Nathan Carter had a great camp. Going into training camp, we like to talk all about this competition and stuff, but by God, there may only be 4 positions open on a 53-man roster. One of these was the 3rd running back spot. Nathan Carter earned it. Good for him. 7 wide receivers. That's a lot. They kept 5 last year. One of those guys is a return man. Casey Washington earned a spot. David Sills is a little bit of a surprise. How much of that will he be able to see? How much of that is also because Darnell Mooney might not be ready to go the first week. 4 tight ends, really 3, because, again, Kyle Pitts is a tight end. So I got Charlie Warner, Felipe Franks, and they just picked up every tight end. I wouldn't know how to pronounce their name, but Tegan Quintariano made this team. A little bit of a surprise, but you got to have another blocker in there somewhere. That's what we talked about on Monday. Felipe and Kyle are closer together. Felipe's probably actually a better blocker than Pitts. So who's going to back up Charlie Warner? It looks like they picked Tegan. Kyle Hinton and Javon Gwynn made the roster at the offensive line. I wouldn't guarantee that they stick. This is going to be a fluid offensive line. And then Mike Jarrell will be on the team by the end of the day to be the 53rd player. There are no extra cuts that come with that one because they only released 52 to begin with. 5 men on the defensive line. No surprises there. With LaCale London being the only player they had that was over 320 pounds, we kind of not aggravated, not agitated, but we advocated, thank you, for him to make this roster. And he did. Contavious Street did not. We'll see if he's back on the 16-man practice squad today. Edge rushers, D'Angelo Malone sneaks in there as a special teams guy, and we always thought it would be 5 this year after 4 last year because you knew Floyd Ebiketie were going to make it. The 2 first-round picks were going to make it, and then you won a spot for Braylon Trice to be the 5th guy this year. At linebacker, Josh Woods makes this team inside, along with J.D. Bertrand and obviously the starters, Ellis and Diablo. We've gone through the corners and safeties pretty well in here already in this draft. So that's what we've got so far. And August, this is a good point. This is what I agree with you on this also. Again, with Storm Norton being out for basically 3 months, we might not get the very best of Storm Norton, which is a 3rd-level offensive tackle anyway. So the right tackle situation in Atlanta is not good. It is not good. And as Robbie says, it's, it has kind of crushed me. It's not good, but there are ways to help cover that. And one of those ways, again, is Charlie Warner. Charlie Warner is one of the unsung heroes of this team. Y'all remember all the injuries, including Kirk Cousins going into that Denver Broncos game? A lot of them were on defense, and the Broncos just picked that defense apart. But I said going in, Charlie Warner missed that game. I'm like, this is the guy. This is the glue guy that helps make everything else around him work, helps cover up for some of the deficiencies on the right tackle. And if you don't do that, you got a problem. Charlie Warner is incredibly valuable. Don't overtalk Charlie Warner, Scott. Stay healthy, Charlie. Good Georgia boy. I hope he stays healthy. Antonio Langford, thank you for the stars, my friend. Certainly appreciate it on that one. But it has put a little bit of a damper on the outlook for this team that they're talking about Mike Jarrell and Eli Wilkinson at right tackle with a left-handed quarterback. So we will see. There are ways to mitigate the damage for sure. And Zach Robinson is, he'll be working on that. On that note, I am going to get out of here. Terry says, have a great anniversary. Thank you. See you. It's 25. See you with a bit of a tan next time. Yeah, I actually get washed out a little bit. I've got so many lights on me. I'm fairly tan. I mean, it is August in the summer. But I'll have a different shade on me when I get back for sure. Because I'm not going down there in March when I'm white as a ghost. I can actually go outside and not burn in 2 minutes and spend some time outside while I'm down there. Going down in March for going down, spring break types of travel, I'm a little nervous going outside at that point. But we are going to get out of here. Remember, Garrett will be back tomorrow night, Thursday night, leading us into the weekend. No show on Monday. We will be back on Wednesday, and then we'll probably make it up for you with a Friday show leading into the weekend for the game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, because we are here. It is football time. Enjoy a great college football weekend before next weekend when we get to the NFL Week 1. Thanks for being here, everybody. A special shout out. What did you just do? To our super chat superstars. That's where that came from. Sam, Lance, Antonio, Rusty, Denver, and of course, the Sunrise, Michael Ronquillo. Thanks for being here, everybody. Y'all have a great rest of your day. Enjoy this long football weekend. We'll see you next week.